Over the years when I've worked with the congregations, I've found one thing to be almost universally true in declining churches. And that is when I sit down with the average member, and often with the average clergy person or staff person, and I ask, where do you think the church will be in 5 years, or where do you want to see the church in 5 years? I get a lot of deer in the headlights kind of looks. They have no idea. They don't know what they want, other than they'd like to grow, they'd like to be bigger, they'd like to have more of something, but they really have no compelling vision. And when you have no compelling vision, as the saying goes from Proverbs, the people perish, and in almost all cases, so does the church. The church perishes if it doesn't have a compelling vision, if it doesn't know where it's trying to go. Now, the reality is every leader leads. Every single leader leads somewhere. You have a position, you have the authority, the responsibility. Well, you may not have the authority, and that's another issue, but you have the responsibility to lead the congregation. And the majority of leaders in these declining churches, where they're leading is in leading and keeping or maintaining the status quo. That there's a hope, a dream, or some sort of presupposition that 1954 is gonna come back sometime. And of course, if you were to say 1954 isn't coming back, not ever. But when a pastor or the church leaders try to maintain the status quo, they try to maintain the we're not going anywhere because we're a faithful remnant, then what happens is that, well, it's like this chart. This chart shows just an estimation of external change, the change in the culture. Things in the culture are changing, and they're changing pretty rapidly. But things, the internal locus of change, if you will, or in this case, the church's, the organization's locus of change, is typically very much a more gentle slope. I believe most churches are changing. I mean, my guess is that your church has a telephone. It probably has a television. It may even have screen technology. You probably have the internet, but if not, you have access to that, and so on and so on and so on. There's incremental change. But as you see, as the external change continues to climb, and the internal change continues to not keep up, that gap continues to widen. And when that gap gets too wide, it's a recipe, it's a guarantee. It implies impending disaster. And with churches closing every year, some 5,000 of them or more, every single year are closing, then that's the impending disaster. 1954 isn't coming back, and maintaining the status quo is not a vision. It won't take you anywhere. Effective leaders are interested not in staying in the harbor and keeping the ship safe or keeping the church safe. They want to hoist the sails and weigh the anchor and head out onto the open ocean and go somewhere. But too many leaders who want to go somewhere, they really have no idea of where they want to go. They have no vision at all. And if they have no vision, there's, as I said, there's decline. But I think almost worse is a church that has a bad vision, a vision that I see in so very many churches that is demotivating and it's demoralizing. You may know about this kind of vision. It's the kind of vision that says, it's almost always based in Acts 1:8, it seems, that we as a congregation are going to reach the world for Jesus Christ from our doorsteps to the city, to the nation, to the ends of the earth. That sounds really good, and it's beautifully gussied up in spirituality. It's gorgeous, but these churches that have those kind of visions almost always have a problem with reaching the guy who lives across the street, let alone having any sort of revival, if you will, or having any sort of major impact on their neighborhood, on their community or beyond. So the thought of reaching the world for Jesus, it sounds really good, and that's good for somebody else because we can't do it because we can't even reach the folks across the street. That's a bad vision. And it's not really much of a vision. Now, there's the other side of the story. There's church leaders who don't really worry about the vision. They believe that the church is a processual journey. The journey is what's really important. And don't get me wrong, the journey is important. You've got to go somewhere. You got to leave the harbor. The problem is when people get caught up in the processual world, they're looking down and they're looking at one step at a time, 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 and when they look up, they have no idea where they're going or where they've been or very often even where they are because they're just wandering. They're wandering in the desert trying to, go. Nowhere in scriptures to say the journey is what's the most important. In fact, repeatedly we're told to keep our eye on the goal, keep our eye on the prize, to put our hands to the plow and continue to look forward because without a destination, you're just taking a walk. So you need to have a vision. And, if you will, a vision is more important than the process, although only because that process is critically important to achieving that vision. You have to have feet on the vision. That's why I wrote the Big Mouse book. That if you're going to herd cats, you'll need a bigger mouse. And the premise of the book is that you're trying to herd cats. You have your churches, if you will, their church members are the cats, and all your cats have a really good idea. I call it their pet mouse, and they love their idea. And everyone has an idea on how you can help. If you would just implement their idea, the church would grow. And the problem is, whose mouse are you going to choose? You can't do all the mice. And here's the sad thing: the reality is if you implement my good idea and I hand that idea over, I'm going to have another good idea. There is no end to good ideas. If you're going to, though, have a vision, a compelling vision, if you're going to go where God is trying to lead you, you've got to have a compelling big mouse vision, a vision that's so big that your congregational cats go, wow, that's the vision that I want to chase. Yes, that resonates with my heart and my mind and my soul, and I'll use my good idea to achieve that, or I'll abandon my good idea, as the case may be. You keep your eye on the prize, on this huge mouse, and you move. And there's a process that the book goes through that will walk you through how to create vision. For once, to begin with, is a vision creation, or the discernment, hearing where God wants you to go. And once you have that, of course, you got to make sure that it resonates with the congregation, but it's not going to resonate with everyone. That's part of the whole point of this class. Your job is to take a vision that gets most of the people going, or maybe not even most of the faithful people going. Sometimes it's not the majority, sometimes it's the minority, but it takes them into a future because they're excited about this vision. And then there's the vision casting. That's telling people about the vision and watching the eyes light up. And when their eyes light up, they're on board with the vision. And then it's about nurturing that and keeping the vision moving. Then there's the implementation piece. Because just because you've said this is where we're going, until you've actually weighed anchor and hoisted the sails and left the harbor, you're going nowhere. So there's the implementation, and that's important. And finally, there really is never finally. Then there's the vision measurement. You measure, where are we now? And you check that against the vision, and you make course correction, and you're doing that regularly, at least weekly, sometimes daily. Are we on course? And you make adjustments, and then as you make adjustments, you have to recast the vision. Hey, this is where we're going, because every so often we forget where we're going, and we have to keep that in front of people. We got to make sure that big mouse stays around. That's all in the Big Mouse book. And so I encourage you to read that book and get on board with it, because without vision, the church will perish. You need a big vision. You're leading somewhere. The question is, where are you going to lead? I'll see you next week.